Alright, hello. Welcome once again to Indigo Nick's Art, and we are going to get started here. So this is going to be the first time I use a script for my videos, only because the subject material, I'm trying to stay on track and not ramble throughout the video. I'm trying to improvise the audio before, and it wasn't very good. This will be a constant thing, only with subjects that require me to do a lot of research and not just my own opinion. Um, Alrighty, so today's subject is what it would take to make a good female villain. We touched on this briefly with the false rape claims video discussion, that discussed the one anime who had that iffy female villain. Um, I'm too lazy to go look up what that anime was. We wanted to discuss female villains in that video, but ran out of time, so we're doing it today. Yay! So big thanks to She Writes, Sacha Black, and Ghostspark WordPress for acting as my research for today. Now let's jump into female villains. Now I don't know if many of you guys know, but I'm also working on a comic as well as am involved in a few different RPGs, so I do a lot of character creation. In my comic, though, I do have a female villain. I have two, even. They are both what I would consider to be boundary breakers, at the same time do still fall into some of the stereotypes. That being said, those stereotypes are there for a reason. My main villain is a reflection of my hero, which each following a similar path, and their actions and reactions are what caused them to diverge. It's based strongly on a lot of the problems I had to grow up with and the resulting trauma and healing I've had to go through. And sadly, even cliches can never see the truth. I say this just because if you are writing a story yourself and you have a good female villain, you do like how you wrote them, but they don't follow the points and advice provided in this video, don't sweat it too much, but I would suggest running it by a sensitivity reader just to make sure. And also, as a side note, later down the road, I will talk about how to write trauma. When writing a good female villain, it is important to realize that despite being a villain, despite being a woman, it's not so much different than writing a male villain. Try not to hyper-focus on the woman part. Again, there are exceptions to this, especially when addressing issues that can be unique to women. So what makes a good villain in general? Well, number one, core values. Even bad guys have a set of rules they follow despite not them being conducive to society's values, excuse me. This can lead to motivations which can drive your plot. Number two would be integrity. Make sure to not change your villain's values all the time, and if they do change, explain why the sudden change. Maybe they've been given info that changes how they see the world and it drives them to insanity, etc. Though, as a side note, I am getting a bit tired of all the female villains seeming to have some form of mental illness. Most mentally ill people will be victims of a crime than actual perpetrators. Number three, have your villains do what they said they're going to do. Don't have them say they're going to blow up the world or torture somebody, then not do it. Really kills the threat there. And number four, make your villain competent. No challenge is no fun, and make your heroes work for that happy ending. Alright, from there, let's dive into some of the more common tropes and stereotypes we see, and then the do and do nots from there. It is okay to use sexuality as a part of your villain's toolkit, but try more outsmarting someone with flirting than porn star. Give context on how she's able to do it, and please don't let that be the only thing they can do. More often, this ties with a villain who's merely second villain to a male villain, so switch it up. For example, I have a femme fatale who's a sadist with no limits. She's prideful and shallow and is completely loyal to the main villain, who is also a female. And try to avoid the honeypot trap, where the villain sets themselves up as a victim but is merely a trap. This is where that one anime can fall. It's tired and it robs the villain of their agency and in turn their credibility. Another good example I would say would be Aries from Sinbad, the cartoon movie. She is definitely very sexual, but is more about playing people and their emotions to get what she wants than, hey, look at my tits! Try and keep the romance from being the primary motivation. Like, oh no, the hero has rejected her and now she's evil. You can have family, like watching a loved one, maybe a husband die. Hint, hint, it's to what my villain's motivations are. Hell, maybe their lover chose to do something that the villain found reprehensible, like siding with another villain, etc. But not like, oh no, you didn't give me the thing I wanted for Christmas, so now I'm evil. Unless it's pre-established that this is like a female sociopath or a narcissist, like the villain from Addams Family, Family Values. But that was more played up for comedy than actual drama. And then try to avoid making her merely a victim with no agency. I'm only bad because of the bad thing that happened to me, but if the male hero comes and redeems me, I'll change super quick. Some other examples for motivations provided by She Writes are extinction, literal or cultural, climate change, economic hardship, equality, abuse. I would be careful with using minority group issues as the villain's motivations. When it came down to my comics villain's original motivation, the villain was going to be a rape survivor who went insane believing the whole world was unredeemable and needed to be purged, and that my hero was also going to go through events similar to the villain. But to do something as traumatic as rape, it would eat too much into the story in order to keep it from becoming plain shock value. If you're going to use abuse or rape as part of the story in a capacity, make sure you are leaving room to explore that, how it happened, healing, etc. I dropped it for another pretty decent motivation that ended up really clearing up the plot and making more sense for the ending I had in mind. And if you're thinking about just using this to make your story more adult, again, that falls into shock value and not maturity. You can have a mature story with using any of the motivations mentioned here. Keep your villains in general from being evil for evil's sake. Again, my secondary villain is a sadist. She enjoys hurting people, but she's also loyal to the main villain because the main villain gave her purpose. She sees herself as the necessary evil to fulfill her master's wishes without getting her master's hands dirty. That can be a complete character. Even if your villain is like that of the Joker, give them hobbies, personality traits, give some justification to why they're doing what they're doing. The Joker believes that the world is truly chaotic, and he is just opening people's eyes up to that, Batman being the ultimate challenge of a convert. And definitely avoid the likes of the evil stepmother, the evil queen, evil stepsister, evil witch, etc. These are flimsy cutouts that play into harmful stereotypes, especially towards older women. If you're going to have them, you need more motivation than to be the prettiest. These aren't hard, unmovable rules because I can already see where I can play with people's expectations, like the villain merely pretending to be the victim with no agency in order to slowly pick off the team one by one or to convert them to her side. Just bear in mind that women are human beings. And try to keep them from being poorly written stereotypes. Make them interesting. Usually the best advice I can give to get more advice on this would be read good books, watch good TV shows / movies with female villains, see how they're handled, and how they're written, and how that affects the story. Alright then, well next time we are going to go into the origins of pride, and where that's coming from. That'll be another scripted one, but keep watching. I appreciate those likes. Check out my Patreon. There's going to be some new stuff on my Patreon not related to my YouTube channel. I would look into that. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. You have a good rest of your day. Goodbye.